Part 97. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 988. 3 updates. The next day, Jun Daodu and Zhou Hanliang came to the Zhou family as guests. When they were alone with Shuxia Luo Zioxian, Jun Daodu apologized to the two of them with an embarrassed look. "I'm sorry that I made you run away yesterday." "Quickly pull her down." Luo Zioxian rolled her eyes. "We have known each other for a day, is there any need to say such nonsense? According to what you said, Chu Xia and I should apologize to you, and we don't. It's really inappropriate to run over after saying hello and cause your adoptive parents' family to fall apart." "Your mouth." Jun Daodu shook his head helplessly. "Can you be a little more lenient? You were the one who started it, can you blame me?" "Okay, it's all my fault." Helpless, Jun Daodu had no choice but to compromise and turn to look at Chu Xia. "As you can see, we usually have this pattern when we are together. I have to give in." "Hold her. Who told you to be so polite?" Luo Zioxian looked at her unconvinced. "I treat you as my best friend and tell you everything." "What about you? You've been so polite for a while. That's what I hate most about you." "Son. Are you really telling me everything?" Jun Daodu raised her eyebrows. "Are you sure?" Luo Zioxian nodded without thinking. "Of course." Jun Daodu looked her up and down with a wicked smile. "A month ago, Zhou Hanliang and I met you and Zhaoqi Liang on Huqiao Road. Did you tell me what you two were doing?" "You." Luo Zioxian's face turned red instantly. "You, what are you talking about?" Looking at their attitudes, Chu Xia understood what they were talking about, and suddenly remembered that Jun Daodu had mentioned this matter when she called her. She also had suspicions at the time, but she didn't say it out loud. I guess Jun Daodu had the same idea as her. I'm just too embarrassed to say it. Now that Luo Zioxian and Zhaoqi Liang are married, let's talk about this matter. It's not so taboo anymore. Okay, I'm just talking nonsense, you don't have to be so anxious. Jun Daodu said and sighed. I'm just saying this now because I'm thinking about my sister. Hey, if you don't tell me, girls really can't drink randomly. My sister drank too much. She was accidentally taken advantage of by her boyfriend and had to get married. In fact, she was quite satisfied with Li Yupeng originally. But after the two really became husband and wife, Li Yupeng seemed to be a different person. Not only was he not as careful as before, he was also not clear with the female workers in the factory. My sister wanted to break up with him, but he said that if my sister dared not to marry him, he would tell the story about her and my sister, so that my sister would not be able to gain a foothold in the factory. It's also reached this point. Only then did my sister find out that Li Yupeng had lied to her before. His family was so poor that he even broke the pot. Just imagine a family of 7 crowded into a small house of more than 10 square meters. 7 people live in a house of more than 10 square meters. Chu Xia scratched her head, with a look of disbelief on her face. Could it be that they sleep in rows on the floor? His grandparents and parents slept in a big bed, and he and his brother lived in a small bed. There was a small curtain on the balcony for his sister to sleep on. His brother still has no girlfriend. After he gets married, he and my sister will live in that house. Jun Daodu spread her hands and said, I really can't imagine how we will live there. I can't imagine it either. Chu Xia shook her head. Your sister seems quite shrewd. How could you find such a person? We don't dislike the poor and love the rich, but at the very least, we have to have a place to stay, right? Well, even if there is no place for it, you also need to have some moral character, right? If you marry a man who threatens others with despicable means, you will regret it. It is better to break up early and make a quick decision. But, she sighed, as an outsider, it's easy to say it, but it's difficult for the person involved to do it. After all, you have to take into account the pressure of public opinion. That man only grasped this and dared to be so arrogant. Xiaoxian, why have you been silent? Jun Daodu glanced at Luo Xiaoxian, who had been silent, in confusion. You are always the most angry about this kind of thing, why are you so abnormal today? Are you still angry with me? Are you angry? We can't be so petty. Who is angry with you? Luo Xiaoxian rolled her eyes at her and smiled unnaturally. I just don't know what to say. Things have reached this point. It's useless for us to be angry or accuse. The key point is whether your sister is pregnant. If she's not pregnant, you can consider moving her job elsewhere to hide. If she is pregnant, there's really nothing you can do. Yes. Jun Daodu slapped her forehead fiercely. Why didn't I think of this? Yes, this is really a solution. After hearing what my sister said yesterday, I have been feeling sorry for her. Xiaoxian, thank you, you really helped me a lot. You're so polite. Luo Xiaoxian pouted, I just said that I hate you the most, and I did it again right away. Okay, I was wrong. Jun Daodu quickly apologized. My mind has been in chaos these past few days, and it is inevitable that I will be careless, so please don't pick on me. Luo Xiaoxian remembered that she had been worried and asked, by the way, when you got married, did Li Yuxiang not cause trouble? Can you not go? Jun Daodu rolled his eyes. I have seen shameless people, but I have never seen such shameless people. I have really gained experience. In early summer, the person named Yamiru before, and this Li Yuxiang, it's nothing in comparison. You all can't imagine that on the night of our wedding, it was not just the wedding night, but all the men were there, and she went directly to it alone. The custom at Zhou Hanliang's place is that no one can be young or old that night, no matter how old or young they are. In other words, if anyone comes to make trouble for us, we will have to suffer. Then Li Yuxiang went there. Of course she was not making trouble with me, but to make trouble with Zhou Hanliang. Do you know how she made trouble? He actually took off Zhou Hanliang's clothes in front of everyone. Everyone saw how excited she was and joined in the fun. Zhou Hanliang was too embarrassed to resist too much, so they really took off his clothes. Then, the woman touched, hugged, and kissed Zhou Hanliang in front of me. Not only me, but all the people who were having trouble with the wedding were stunned. Finally, someone notified Zhou Hanliang, who went in and dragged her out. To tell you the truth, I didn't let Zhou Hanliang touch me that night. Just thinking about Li Yuxiang's abuse on him makes me sick. He said that he was also shocked at the time, and the other person was a woman and he didn't want to touch her. Only by following her will the other party succeed. But according to what he said, if I wasn't there that day, would he have to wait for Li Yuxiang to favor him? That would be really interesting. Even if they didn't see the scene at that time, Chu Xia and Luo Xiaoxian were still shocked. They had thought of various tricks for Li Yuxiang to trouble Jun Daodu, but they didn't expect this trick. The main thing is, after such a move, how will Li Yuxiang deal with herself in the local area? This woman is really not an ordinary person, or maybe she just wants to use this method to break up the family so that she can marry Zhou Hanliang. Isn't that too childish? Without waiting for the two of them to express their opinions, Jun Daodu continued, you think this is the end? That's really a big mistake. He was taken away that night and went back early the next morning. Because the custom in Zhou Hanliang's place is that the first day is for the wedding ceremony, and the second day is for seeing the new wife. Even the girls and wives in the village can come to me to ask for wedding candies. Then, she really went to me to ask for the candy, and even said in front of everyone that if she had done it earlier, she would be the one who wanted the wedding candy, not me. Later, Zhou Hanliang went in and kicked her out with a sullen face. As a result, she sat in the hall with snot and tears and cried to Zhou Hanliang's parents about her regrets. Zhou Hanliang's parents are both honest people. Although they were annoyed by her crying, they were too embarrassed to kick her out. Then during lunch, Johanning gave in and she really stayed. Chusia and Luoxiaoxian are just a black line, they are too experienced. Anyway, I've been really pissed off by her these past few days. Jun Daodu waved his hands in disgust. Johan Liang is scolding his sister, and she is not allowed to associate with Li Yuxiang. But her sister also felt aggrieved. Girls always have to have a companion when going out. If she is not with Li Yuxiang, she will have to go out alone, and her family will not worry. Therefore, even though the Zhou family knew about Li Yuxiang's thoughts about Johan Liang, they turned a blind eye. Moreover, the Zhou family also felt in their hearts that with the existence of such a person, I would have a sense of urgency and would treat Johan Liang. It's so good, oh, just talking about it brings me to tears. Compared to you, I'm really happy. Luoxiaoxian reached out and patted her, looking at it this way, all my troubles are nothing to worry about. Daodu, in fact, the time you met me a month ago, you guessed it. Now, I am basically sure that I may have won the bid, so I will also face some difficulties next. This shows that no one is unlucky at all. If you want to be more open-minded, as long as Johan Liang treats you well, that is enough. Not only Jun Daodu looked at Luoxiaoxian blankly, but Chu Xia also looked speechless. Is she making a secret exchange? Well, being decisive is still a child. You. Jun Daodu quickly suppressed his worries and stared at Luoxiaoxian's abdomen nervously. You are also, like early summer. Yes, Luoxiaoxian blushed and nodded. Now only you and Chu Xia know, don't tell me, or I won't tell you anything in the future. Of course I won't tell anyone, but can you keep it a secret? Jun Daodu looked at her worriedly. Do you feel sick and want to vomit now? No. Do you always want to run to the bathroom? Nor. Do you have? Chu Xia looked at the two of them speechlessly, not knowing what to say. One of them had never been pregnant or had a baby and had no experience at all. He was pretending to teach the other person experience. There are other things more ridiculous than this. To be continued. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 989. Popular recommendations. 1 update. Suddenly, Jun Daodu stopped talking and looked at Chu Xia with a smile. I forgot, you are the one who knows the best about this aspect. Well, what I just said is not wrong, right? Daodu, you have done a lot of homework. Chu Xia smiled and put his arm around her shoulders. It feels like I don't know as much as you do. It seems that this plan took more than a day or two. Daodu. Luoxiaoxian looked Jun Daodu up and down. You can't be. What are you thinking about? Jun Daodu interrupted her urgently. I stay in the hospital every day and have seen and heard a lot. What's so strange about knowing this? You think it's embarrassing to be like me? Luoxiaoxian looked at her with a hurt face. So you were just comforting me, were you laughing at me? No. No, Jun Daodu hurriedly explained. How could I laugh at you? It's too late for me to admire you. How could you think so? Isn't that what you said just now, exactly what I thought? No. Johan Liang and I are different from you and Zhaoqi Liang. Biting her lips, Jun Daodu looked at the two of them with a red face. Actually, I also want to use your trick, but didn't succeed. Really? Luoxiaoxian's eyes widened instantly. When did it happen? It's so uninteresting. You have never mentioned this to me. Didn't you tell me originally? Jun Daodu sighed and said, I was forced to have no choice but to use this method to force Johan Liang to marry me. But he was so thief, he saw through my thoughts at once. Not only did he stop me from drinking, but he also made it clear. He said that if I had really thought about it, he would not back down. However, he did not accept my approach. He said that he did not agree before because of my consideration. Now that I have figured it out myself, he will no longer be pretentious. He said that he would never accept such a beautiful thing becoming a bargaining chip for having to get married. He felt that I did that because I didn't believe him and didn't understand him. Anyway, in the end, he only forgave me after I admitted my mistake countless times. I felt ashamed to see him afterwards. Fortunately, he kept his word and came to my house to propose marriage another day. Otherwise, I wouldn't know how to face him. What should I say? Luo Xiaoxian looked at Chu Xia weakly. Does it mean that Zhao Qiliang has no determination, or that his feelings for me are not as deep as Zhou Hanliang's feelings for Jun Daodu? Get out of here, Chu Xia glared at her. Is this kind of thing easy to compare? You don't even think about how many things Zhou Hanliang has been through and how many things my brother has been through. I am definitely not saying this just because he is my brother and I am going with him. It is purely a case-by-case basis. They have different personalities and different experiences. Is it fair for you to hold them to the same standards? Luo Xiaoxian breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, why didn't I think of this? I just thought that Zhao Qiliang would fall into the trap as soon as I used the beauty trick. It seemed too inferior. Do you dare to say anything to you in the future like this? Jun Daodu looked at her helplessly. Do you know that I almost scared you to death just now? I originally wanted to let you know that we are the same in this regard. Who knew that your entry point was Zhou Hanliang's? It seemed like I was showing off. Hee hee. Luo Xiaoxian smiled coquettishly. If Zhao Qiliang knew about my doubts just now, he would definitely be angry to death. It was obviously me who plotted against him, but I still blame him. Is it really more unfair than Doi? In fact, speaking of it, he also believed in me so much that he fell into my trap. Daodu, when I say this, do you think Zhou Hanliang doesn't believe you? No, Jun Daodu shook her head. I don't have as many random thoughts as you do. You are pregnant now, so I don't care about you. Chu Xia answered with a smile. You are right. I was wondering before, how could a person who was so happy suddenly become suspicious and indecisive? Now I know that it is all caused by the mutation of estrogen. Luo Xiaoxian stared at her dissatisfied. Are you trying to show that you are not affected by estrogen? Look, are you overthinking it? I knew how bad-tempered I was back then. Chu Xia shook her head in amusement. You are really frighteningly sensitive now. Luo Xiaoxian's little face fell down. It's over, I'm going to become a psychopath if I keep acting like this. Why do I think in other words when you just say something? It's okay. It's been fine in the past few days. You just don't get used to it all of a sudden. Plus, since things haven't been explained to you, I'm feeling agitated. Chu Xia patted her comfortingly. I know you understand the truth, but you just can't control it. For yourself, but for the sake of your child, you must calm down your emotions. You don't want to give birth to a child with an impatient personality in the future, right? Ah, Luo Xiaoxian looked at Chu Xia blankly. You're not trying to scare me, are you? My emotions can really affect. After a few words, she was still embarrassed to say baby 2 words, pointing to his stomach, affected his mood. It will have an impact. Otherwise, why don't you say you can't be angry when you're pregnant? Luo Xiaoxian breathed a long sigh of relief. After a while, she couldn't help but grimace. I can't do it. Just thinking about my mother knowing about it makes me feel confused. Persuade yourself, there is really no other way to deal with this. Chu Xia looked at her seriously. No matter how we persuade you now, in fact, you are listening with your ears but not in your heart. Because you yourself always feel that it would be extremely embarrassing if Fat Aunt Gang Shun and Uncle Gang Shun and my uncle and aunt knew about this matter. Even if I tell you, except Fat Aunt, who will be a little uncomfortable at first, everyone else will. I'm just happy, but you won't believe it. Therefore, there are only 2 ways before you now. One is to persuade yourself to relax, and the other is to simply confess to your elders and let go of the burden in your heart as soon as possible. Josei, you have always been braver than me since childhood. This time, you can't be a coward, otherwise, I will really look down on you. The provoking method is useless. Josei looked at her distressedly. I understand what you said, but I just can't do it. I can't do any of them. What should I do? Look at your mother-in-law. Jun Daodu glared at her. Instead of living in such fear, how can I get the pleasure of solving it all at once? Even if the fat aunt scolds you, let her scold you. She has agreed to marry you, which means that she is extremely fond of Zhao Qiliang and this marriage. How could she fall out with you just because of this? What's the difference between a few days earlier and a few days later? As for your husband's family, you don't need to worry. They can only be grateful to you when they know the truth, so how can they look down on you? Chu Xia answered, I told her this, but she couldn't listen at all. Just be stubborn, you will regret it one day. Jun Daodu looked at her seriously. Don't think I'm alarmist, I'm definitely not joking. Let me tell you, if I had succeeded and won the bid, I would definitely tell my family happily now. After all, the first 3 months are very dangerous. If something unexpected happens, it will definitely be an unbearable consequence. You, think about it carefully, is it better to wait for the right time like this, or is it better to just solve it all at once? To put it bluntly, whether face is more important or the child is more important, you can choose for yourself. Chu Xia gave Jun Daodu a thumbs up, but she didn't believe that Jun Daodu's last words couldn't touch Josei. Yes, why didn't she think of saying that before? Sure enough, when 3 people are together, there must be my teacher. She thought that her advice was profound enough, but when the other party said these words, she realized that compared to Jun Daodu, so many of what she said were nonsense. Sure enough, Josei's expression changed, and then she went out without saying a word. This is... Jun Daodu looked at Chu Xia in disbelief. Are you being persuaded by me? Then you still need to ask. Chu Xia looked at her with a smile. Your last sentence just stabbed her in the heart. If she can't figure it out anymore, she would be really selfish. So I'm still a hero. Jun Daodu smiled to herself for a while, then turned and walked out. No, I have to go to Uncle Zhao and Aunt Zhao to receive the award. If it weren't for me, how could they be happy now? Are you happy? He walked to the door and slapped his forehead fiercely. I'm really stupid. Zioxian just told Fat Ant now, why am I joining in the fun? Then she glared at Chu Xia. I hate it. What are you doing? Don't remind me. That's so unreasonable. Chu Xia looked at her funny. I thought you were teasing me, but I didn't know you were serious. My brain suddenly went numb. Jun Daodu stroked her forehead and sighed. If Guo Guo were here, he might have to teach me a lesson again. Let me tell you, don't think Guo Guo is confused about something. But she observes some things more carefully than I do. Yesterday when I went back to my parents' house and I was about to leave, my mother secretly shed tears. I didn't notice it, but Guo stared at me and thought that I just got married and didn't care about my family. At that time, I was wondering, it was my mother who took over the marriage. When she smiled on my sister's shoulder, I realized that the circles under my mother's eyes were red. Second aunt, when did you come here? Are you okay? Chu Xia turned around and found Liang Xiaohong standing at the door looking at her with some hesitation, then stood up to greet her. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to eavesdrop on you. I just came here. Liang Xiaohong looked at the two of them with a look of embarrassment. R1152. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 990. Second update. Second aunt, it's okay, I'm not talking about anything shameful. Well, doesn't this clearly mean that the other party is eavesdropping? Jun Daodu stopped abruptly and looked at Chu Xia for help with an embarrassed expression. Second aunt understands what you really mean by what you said, and I won't misunderstand you. Chu Xia looked at Liang Xiaohong with a smile. Second aunt, am I right? Of course. Liang Xiaohong nodded quickly. Daodu, you are helping me smooth things over. I understand. Besides, it was my fault in the first place. I should have knocked on the door earlier. At such an old age, I am still so inconsiderate when things happen. How can you still have the nerve to think about someone who is wronged? Second aunt, don't say that. Chu Xia looked at her sincerely. I know you must have come to see me because of something, and when we happened to have a private conversation, we were in a dilemma. In fact, no matter who encounters this situation, you will have this reaction. If you always apologize and admit your mistakes like this, we will feel embarrassed. We should close the door if we whisper, right? Okay, I won't be entangled in this matter. Liang Xiaohong sighed and said, Second aunt came here to ask you for a favor. You and Xiaofeng have the smallest age gap and are the easiest to talk to. Can you please trouble me? Can you help persuade Xiaofeng? Chu Xia, you talk to the second aunt, and I'll go see how things are going with Xiaoxian, Jun Daodu said as she quickly dodged out. If people didn't avoid her, she couldn't help but feel conscious. Liang Xiaohong smiled apologetically at Chu Xia. I have been trying to find some time to discuss this matter with you these days, but you are always so busy. Second aunt is afraid that if I wait any longer, you will have to go back, so. Second aunt, you don't need to explain, I understand. With a serious expression, Chu Xia looked at Liang Xiaohong seriously. Second aunt, of course I hope Xiaofeng and Lao Wu can live happily, but in this matter, if Lao Wu doesn't, it's useless for anyone to come forward. If Xiaofeng's feelings for Lao Wu were not deep enough, she would not have married him under the circumstances at that time. Last time such a big thing happened, Xiaofeng did not leave Lao Wu, so this time with her persistence, it shows that she is really disappointed with Lao Wu. And she has not come back because she is waiting for Lao Wu to truly realize her mistake and take the initiative to admit it to her. So, if you let me go, I can promise you, but in the end, you really don't want to hold anything. Expect. Although Xiaofeng and I can still talk to each other, she will not betray me about this matter, let alone me. Even if Zhou Mixang tries to persuade her, it will be useless. I know. Liang Xiaohong had a bitter look on her face. How could I not know this truth, but I really can't do anything about Zhongkang, that stubborn donkey. I'm afraid that if I continue to stretch like this marriage will really break up. If possible, can you discuss it with Xiaofeng and ask her to forgive Zhongkang this time? In fact, Zhongkang himself knew that he was wrong, but he just couldn't lose face. He was too proud of face, and at his age, he didn't understand which one was more important, face or happiness. He doesn't understand. Parents can't let him be confused. I know that my request is unfair to Xiaofeng, but I really have no choice. Moreover, I can also see that Xiaofeng has true feelings for Zhongkang. She is more sensible than Zhongkang. As a mother-in-law, I have to be selfish for once and ask her to take a step back. But if I go to tell her, I am putting pressure on her, so the second aunt has no choice but to tell her what she thinks. No matter what choice she makes, the second aunt will not blame her. No matter what choice she makes, the second aunt will treat her as a daughter. Helpless, Chu Xia had no choice but to say, Second aunt, I can help you with this matter, but you should know that if Lao Wu's character does not change, even if he passes this hurdle, there will be another time. She also understood why Liang Xiaohong came to her. As an elder, going to Mei's house to talk about this matter really gave people the bad impression of coercion. For the younger generation, she and Yu Tao are the most suitable candidates, but Yu Tao will give birth in a month, and her physical condition is not particularly good. In the end, it will naturally fall on her. I believe Liang Xiaohong also understands that doing this is simply treating the symptoms rather than the root cause, but this is how a mother is, always feeling sorry for her son and always thinking about her son. In addition, she has always felt indebted to Zhou Zhonkang, so she wants to cover up everything for him. Wind and rain. In fact, the more she behaves like this, the more detrimental it is to Zhou Zhonkang's growth. However, as a junior, Chu Xia really cannot say these things out loud. I believe that Liang Xiaohong's decision was also hidden from Mrs. Zhou, otherwise, the old lady would my wife will object immediately. But Chu Xia couldn't tell old Mrs. Zhou about this matter, as she would be suspected of filing a complaint. She would not be able to get along with Liang Xiaohong in the future, so she could only do her best to help her. As for the outcome and the future, it's not something she can control anymore. Looking at the blisters on Liang Xiaohong's anxious mouth, Chu Xia simply said, "Second aunt, it's not even 10 o'clock yet, why don't we go now anyway? We have promised the other party that we will go early or late, so then it would be better to do it earlier, which would make Liang Xiaohong feel more comfortable." It just so happened that she was feeling suffocated at home, so she decided to go out for some fresh air. "Can you?" After a pause, Liang Xiaohong smiled sheepishly, "Can you not tell grandma?" "I know." Chu Xia nodded, "I just said I would accompany you for a walk, and then ask Uncle Wang to take us there. Second aunt will be waiting outside then, okay? Then those two friends of yours." Liang Xiaohong looked outside with a troubled face, "Isn't it appropriate to leave them at home like this? If you don't mind, let them come with me. Xiaofen knows them anyway." After thinking about it, Liang Xiaohong nodded, "Okay, let them come together. No one knows about this anyway, and I have nothing to hide. Mei Xiaofeng has been living at home these days, and she feels extremely anxious." If asked if she regrets choosing Zhou Zhonkang, her answer now is definitely regret. She even felt that she had been kicked in the head by a donkey. How could she think that Zhou Zhonkang was good at everything? In terms of appearance, he is not as good as Zhou Mikang and Zhou Huikang. In terms of talent, he is not as good as Zhou Mikang and Zhou Zikang. In terms of personality, he is not as good as either of them. At the beginning, she was really a frog in the well. The first sadness can be forgiven, but the second sadness becomes a hurdle that cannot be overcome. When she couldn't sleep at night, she also advised herself not to worry about it. She already knew the other person's character was like this anyway, so why did she want to be familiar with him? Woolen cloth? Since you can't let it go, what other options do you have? However, no matter what she did, she couldn't go back by herself. She was very grateful that her mother-in-law always came to see her, but she could not compromise just because of her mother-in-law's few kind words, otherwise the status between her and Zhou Zhonkang would become even more unequal in the future. Therefore, what she hopes now is that Zhou Zhonkang can take the initiative to admit his mistakes. As long as he can do this, she will not care about all the mistakes he has made with her. Indeed, the last few times he came to admit his mistakes, she kicked him out and said she didn't want to see him again. However, after the anger passed, the defense in her heart also collapsed little by little. Although she was dissatisfied with Zhou Zhonkang, she really couldn't do it when she was asked to choose a man again after several years of relationship. When she heard that Zhou's family was visiting, Mei Xiaofeng's spirits suddenly lifted. She washed her face hurriedly, combed her hair, took a look at the dirt on her shoes, quickly found a rag to wipe it, and then walked out of the bedroom. Xiaofeng Chu Xia, who was talking to Mei Yitong, smiled and waved when she saw Mei Xiaofeng. "We haven't seen you for such a long time. Do you miss me?" "Sister-in-law, I miss you the most." Although he was smiling, the excitement and anticipation in his eyes quickly disappeared. How could he escape everyone's eyes? Chu Xia secretly cursed Zhou Zhonkang in his heart. He was really nothing. A woman was hurt like this and she was still looking forward to him. What else could he do? Second aunt, I brought the message to you. After returning home, Chu Xia immediately found Liang Xiaohong and told her the result. You'd better let Zhou Zhongkang go there by himself. The hope in Liang Xiaohong's eyes disappeared little by little, and she sighed with a wry smile. It would be great if I could persuade that boy. Now he feels that he has been kicked out 3 times after inviting him. It's so embarrassing. He can't say anything. The door of the Mei family is closed. Chuxia, can you tell the second aunt what Xiaofeng said? Brother Mei was also there when we met. Moreover, he must have guessed the purpose of my visit, so he just sat there and refused to leave. Xiaofeng and I were not familiar enough to ask to go to each other's bedroom to talk, so we could only in front of Brother Mei. I said what my second aunt asked me to do. Before Xiaofeng could say anything, Brother Mei issued an eviction order. He said that he was not targeting me, but that he didn't like the Zhou family's attitude towards Xiaofeng. If it continued like this, it would be better to just issue a divorce certificate. Looking at Xiaofeng's expression, she has basically forgiven Lao Wu, and has been looking forward to Lao Wu confessing his mistake to her. Therefore, if they don't want to break up, Lao Wu can only invite Xiaofeng in person. Chu Xia, thank you. Liang Xiaohong looked at Chu Xia gratefully. Second aunt has caused trouble for you. Look at your big belly. Second aunt is still bothering you so much. It's really. Second aunt, if you're polite, please don't say anything. Otherwise, I'll feel stupid for doing this favor. Okay, second aunt, no more polite words. Sighing, Liang Xiaohong waved her hand towards Chu Xia. Second aunt, go back and figure out what to do first, and call your 2 friends in by the way. As a result, only Jun Daodu came over after a while, and Chu Xia looked at her in confusion. Where is Xiaoxing? She was protected as a national treasure. Jun Daodu spread her hands. Her mother and her mother-in-law fed her nutritious soup one by one. Really, Chu Xia had a look of surprise on her face. Liang Xiaohong was with them on the way there. They hadn't had the chance to ask Luo Xiaoxing about the result of the discussion with Fat Ant. Now it seemed that there was no need to ask. The result was clearly there. R1152. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 991. 1 update. Because of Luo Xiaoxing's unexpected bid, Li Aiwan decided to stay. However, it is impossible to live in the Zhou family for a long time. Even if they don't mind, they can't be so shameless. So after lunch, Li Aiwan, Zhao Yishan, and Luo Gangshan, accompanied by Zhao Yulan, Lin Baohe, and Lin Yangkaiu, went out to see the house was in the house, and the relationship between the Zhou family was here. Not long after they made the decision, the house was found for them. There are 3 suitable places at the moment. One is a 2-bedroom apartment close to the Zhou family's old house. It is located on the 1st floor and has easy access. The disadvantage is that it is not close to the Health Bureau and the 401 hospital. The other 2 are located near the 401 hospital and the Health Bureau respectively. One is a 2nd building and the other is a 3rd building. They are both located on the 2nd floor. Relatively speaking, entry and exit are very convenient. The elders plan to go over first to see the room type, lighting, and surrounding supporting facilities, and then wait for Director Su to come back to decide on Luo Xiaoxing's working place before making a specific choice. Luo Xiaoxing, who finally got out of her sleep, breathed a long sigh of relief when she could finally sit down with Chu Xia. Jun Daodu. Chu Xia, how did you survive? If my fat aunt and eldest aunt knew that you said this, they would be extremely wronged. They have worked so hard to prepare delicious food for you, and you still scolded them like this. Chu Xia looked at her with a smile, but I don't regret this. Decide. Luo Xiaoxing nodded, although I am forced to eat this and drink that, and are not allowed to do this or that. Compared to the uneasiness I felt before, this is still much better. What was Fat Ant's attitude after you told her? June Dowdu asked curiously. I really wanted to ask you when we went out, but it made me choke to death. What other attitude could there be? Luo Xiaoxing rolled her eyes. You wanted to see a joke but you didn't get it. Are you disappointed? Look at what you said. Am I that kind of person? June Dowdu pushed her angrily. I beat you to death before and you didn't even dare to say it. I would beat you to death unless Fat Ant found out, but I saw what's strange is that not only did the Fat Ant not beat you, she also pampered you more quickly and carefully and was kind to you. The reason why I keep asking this question is that curiosity is indeed a factor, but the most important thing is that I hope you can realize your mistake and that you don't understand your own mother too well. That's right. Luo Xiaoxing sighed. I really don't know my mother well enough. I thought she would leave as soon as she heard about it. Even if she calmed down, she would have to wait for a month. But she didn't come back to her senses except for being stunned for a long time at first. Then she got so angry that she pointed at my forehead and called me a bastard. Then she immediately changed her attitude and asked me if I felt uncomfortable. According to my mother's wishes, she wanted to wait until she had gone to the hospital for a checkup and then told her parents-in-law and others after they were sure. But my father felt that was inappropriate and said that it was very necessary to tell my parents-in-law as soon as possible about such a thing. He didn't. I hope my in-laws will feel that I don't value them. I was embarrassed to tell my mother-in-law, so my mother asked me to wait there while she went to find her father-in-law in person. Then, my mother-in-law and father-in-law came over and treated me more enthusiastically than before. After that, I went to Zhao Qiliang again, scolded him, thought he was too careless, and told him to give in to me in everything from now on, and not to disobey even a word. You all know the rest. After a brief pause, Luo Xiaoxing looked at the two of them seriously. Given our relationship, saying thank you is a bit pretentious, but what I can do now is say thank you to both of you. Thanks. If it weren't for you, I might still be suffering. The feeling of panic and not knowing what to do is really uncomfortable. Although I am subject to various restrictions now, I am really happy compared to what I had. Really, June Dowdu snorted coldly. When I tried to persuade you before, I gave you one reason or another, but now you understand, parents' tolerance for their children is absolutely endless. Just say it to me. If anyone said that my mother is tolerant in the past, I can definitely fight with the opponent, but after this incident, I found that I am really too narrow-minded. She yelled at me because she was frustrated. She felt anxious because she felt that my daughter was not close to her. To put it bluntly, she was overestimating me, but the reason why she was overbearing was because of love. Now that we have talked about it, my mother's personality has become very peaceful. When she used to talk to us, she would unconsciously raise her voice, but now she is very gentle. Yeah, I'm even more unqualified than you. I grew up next to my mother, and yet I still wronged her like this. Alas. Luo Xiaoxing sighed. My mother also wants to stay, but my father won't let me. My father said that since I have married into the Zhao family, I should spend more time with my mother-in-law. In fact, my mother is particularly worried about me, but for my own good, she can only endure it. In the past, I always envied Aunt Yulan for being so kind to Chu Xia. I also said that my mother was not as good to me as Aunt Yulan was to Chu Xia. In fact, they are almost the same, but the way they do things is different. It's good that you know. Don't be confused again. As she spoke, Chu Xia slapped her forehead fiercely. By the way, why haven't I seen Sister Kiwi? She came here at noon. Why was she nowhere to be seen after dinner? Come on, you two are chatting while I go out and take a look. I seem to have seen her going to the yard with Xiaojing. June Dowdu stood up. I feel sleepy from sitting all the time. I'll stay with you, Xiaoxing. If you're tired, Just take a nap, we both will go out for a walk. You. Luo Xiaoxian glared at her bitterly. I'm only a month old, why am I tired? She pointed at Chu Xia's belly. I haven't been tired in the past 7 months, am I that bad? The three of them walked to the edge of the flower bed and saw Zhao Qiwei and Xiaojing sitting side by side. Third young mistress, Comrade Luo, Comrade Jun. Xiaojing stood up hurriedly and greeted in a panic. Come and sit down. Zhao Qiwei waved to a few people and said with a smile, seeing how lively you guys were chatting, I, a single person, felt embarrassed to join in, so I asked Xiaojing to hang out with me. Sit down, Xiaojing. After sitting down, Chu Xia greeted Xiaojing, who was standing aside with a look of embarrassment. I had a good chat with my sister just now. If you don't know, you'd think I'm overbearing. No, 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 Xiaojing waved her hands anxiously. Third young madam, I feel embarrassed. I can't handle my own emotional affairs well, and I have to trouble Comrade Zhao to enlighten me. I'm sorry. Okay, sit down. Chu Xia sighed, we are all about the same age, and now we just sit together and chat. No matter what you think, can you talk to us? I didn't mean to pry into your privacy. You also know that your grandparents care about you. Seeing you wilting all day long makes you feel uncomfortable. They want to ask you, but they are afraid that you may want to make things worse. However, if you are allowed to continue like this for a long time, it will not be good for everyone, right? Yes. In response, Xiaojing looked at Chu Xia with an apologetic look. Third young mistress, I'm sorry, I really didn't mean to pour water on you that day. Chu Xia interrupted her dissatisfiedly, isn't this matter in the past? Why are you bringing it up again? Xiaojing, maybe the time we have been together is too short. You don't understand me. I will never lie about this kind of thing. When I say I don't mind, I mean I really don't mind. When I say I believe it, I mean I really believe it. So, don't go back and forth on this issue. Where do people's troubles come from? This is how I came up with it, and I can roughly guess what you are thinking. It is not so much that you can't accept it emotionally as to break off your engagement with Zhang Jun, but rather that you can't accept it in terms of face. I haven't been married to the Zhou family for a long time, and I don't know much about the people who have lived with the Zhou family for generations, but I believe that there should be a comparison between you. Now you are worried that they will look down on you, so you are delaying leaving. Not coming out, right? Yes. Xiaojing lowered her head and responded, biting her lip again, I know the more I look like this, the more they will look down on me, but I just can't accept it calmly. Chu Xia looked at her seriously, then how do you think you can accept it calmly? Xiaojing shook her head, I don't know. Sighing, Chu Xia said, if Zhang Jun wants to marry you now, will you accept it? Xiaojing shook her head without thinking, no. I don't want to marry him. Chu Xia sighed again, now I will introduce you to someone better than Zhang Jun. Will you feel comfortable? Xiaojing drooped her head and did not say any more. Chu Xia knew that she had hit the target of what the other person was thinking. What do you mean, if you can't find someone, you won't have to see anyone in your life? If grandma sends you to another place, what will you do? Seek short-term responsibility. Xiaojing's head dropped even lower. If you want others to think highly of you, you don't have to rely on charity. After a pause, Chu Xia continued, if you want your group of people to think highly of you, you don't have to wait here passively. Let's not talk about whether people look down on you or not, just talk about respect. You should work hard and live happily instead of feeling sorry for yourself like you are now. Maybe you can't listen to what I said, but I hope you go back and think about it carefully. In your current state, how can you meet a good man, and how can he dare to marry you? Xiaojing's face turned red. She looked up at Chu Xia and moved her lips a few times, but not a single word came out. Just say what you want to say. We are sitting here to solve the problem. Chu Xia frowned and looked at her. I don't want my sheets to be half dry all the time. Xiaojing's body trembled. She raised her head and looked at Chu Xia with a confused expression. Third young mistress, I didn't mean it. You, don't be angry, I really didn't mean it. R1152. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 992. Second update. You mean she laid out half-dry sheets for you? When did this happen? Why didn't you tell Grandma Jo and Aunt Jo? Don't you know what your situation is now? Why should you tolerate such a person? Luo Xiaoxian glared at Xiaojing hatefully as she spoke. She originally thought it was pitiful for the other party to be hurt so much emotionally. Although it was not advisable, it was understandable. Now, when she saw the other party, she only felt that he looked disgusting. I was wrong. Xiaojing knelt down and looked at Chu Xia with tears streaming down her face. Third young master, I really didn't mean to do it. When I was laying out the sheets for you, I heard the third young master's voice. I panicked and knocked over the water glass on the bedside. Originally, it only wet a small area on the bedside, but when I reached for the dry towel, the cup rolled onto the bed again. I was really confused at the time and forgot that I could change it with a new one, so I just took the towel back and forth. Wipe. Then the third young master walked in without even looking at me, took the things and left. I quickly backed out as if I had saved my life, completely forgetting about the wet sheets. When I remembered it again, it was already the next day. I wanted to admit my mistake to you, but seeing no reaction from you, I thought the sheets were already dry when you returned to the room. I was just lucky, so I didn't. Squeak. Third young mistress, I can swear to God that if what happened this time was intentional, I would be kicked out of the Zhou family immediately and be ridiculed by everyone forever. Why are you so anxious and confused? Chu Xia asked sharply. I'm scared when I see the third young master. Really? Chu Xia looked at her lightly. At this time, if you still don't tell the truth, Xiaojing, you really disappoint me. Originally, I didn't want to argue with you, but now, I can only do business. It's official. Third young mistress. Xiaojing knelt and moved forward a few steps. She was about to reach out to pull Chu Xia's leg, but Luo Xiaoxian and Jun Daodu held her back. What do you want to do? Luo Xiaoxian frowned and stared. Looking at her, if you have something to talk about, why are you doing anything? What on earth did she do? Zhao Qiwei looked at Chu Xia and asked, her eyes full of annoyance. She heard about Xiaojing's incident and felt that the other party was quite pitiful, so she took her out for a walk, thinking that she would take the opportunity to. I tried to persuade her, but she didn't know there were such things, and according to her sister's wishes, the other party also did other things that were sorry for her cousin, so what's going on with her? The so-called bedside cup spilled water is nonsense. In fact, she took Zhou Mikang's toothbrush and sat on the bed to brush her teeth. When she heard the door knock, she got excited and spilled water on the bed. Then there is what she said later. When she was wiping the sheets, Zhou Mikang came into the house to get something. She was afraid that the truth would be discovered, so she panicked. As soon as Zhou Mikang left, she ran away in fear, but forgot the evidence on the bed. It hasn't been dealt with yet. Xiaojing looked at Chu Xia with a shocked face and said, how did you know? You. Zhao Qiwei was so angry that she threw it at Xiaojing's face. You are so shameless, and you even told me that Zhang Jun betrayed you. I think it was because he discovered your true nature, so he broke up with you so early. You're gone. I'm really stupid. I actually feel sorry for you and drag you out to relax, haha, it's so ridiculous. You must be laughing at me as you're telling me that I'm a fool, right? I didn't. Xiaojing denied while looking at Chu Xia in panic. Third young mistress, please spare me this time. I promise that I will never do such a thing again. Please give me a chance. I will remember your kindness and kindness throughout my life. Chu Xia waved her hand, and two tall and strong men quickly came over and dragged Xiao Jing away. Xia. Zhao Qiwei looked at Chu Xia with an apologetic look. Don't know what to say. Sister, what are you embarrassed about? You don't know what she did. Besides, let alone you, the whole family was deceived by her, and they think she is quite pitiful. If Ying'er hadn't happened to see her when she was doing that, I wouldn't have known. Sighing, Chu Xia smiled bitterly. I really have to thank Ying'er, otherwise, something might have happened. What's her state of mind? Luo Xiaoxian looked at Chu Xia with a confused look. I've been thinking here for a long time, but I just can't figure out what she means by doing this. It's a fact that her relationship with Zhang Jun is in trouble, and it's a fact that Zhang Jun can't help her, but she shouldn't have such a psychological abnormality after falling out of love. She had a crush on Zhou Mikang before. I can't explain her current mentality, but I know that what she wanted when she took Zhou Mikang's toothbrush was an indirect contact. If this continues, I'm afraid it won't be as simple as spilling water on my bed next time. Spreading her hands, Chu Xia smiled self-deprecatingly. Thankfully I was still pitying her earlier, haha. Luo Xiaoxian frowned. So, the water she spilled on you before was her intention? Maybe. When did this happen? Zhao Qiwei looked at Chu Xia and asked. Yesterday. Chu Xia shook her head amusedly. I took her with me specially to let her go out to relax, but I didn't expect such a result. Originally, I planned to tell the elders about this, but I never found the time today. If she hadn't felt guilty, she wouldn't have acted like she did today. She's the only one who's so whimsical. Daodu, if she hears your tone, she will be particularly scornful. In her opinion, she is a native of the Zhou family, so she is much better than a country girl like me. At first she was unconvinced, but in her position, there was nothing she could do if she wasn't convinced, and given Zhou Mikang's character, she didn't dare to act rashly. In fact, I have felt her rejection of me since I married into the Zhou family, but I didn't think much about it at that time. Spreading her hands, Chu Xia had a look of joy on her face. You don't think it's because I'm not living at home now that I'm pregnant? A blessing? What a risk! Luo Xiaoxian patted her chest repeatedly. The family believes in her so much. If she really did something bad, she would really have no regrets. Outsiders only envy your good luck, but they don't know all the mess you have to face every day. Zhao Qiwei hugged her distressedly. Xia, it's really not easy for you. Sister, don't say that. Chu Xia looked at her funny. It's actually not as complicated as you think. Although Xiaojing is a little careful, she won't really harm me, otherwise she would have succeeded long ago. Right? In fact, she was also annulled by Zhang Jun this time, and the irritation she received was a bit great, and her nerves were a little out of control. Her family had noticed something was wrong with her before, but thanks to her growing up in the Zhou family, she thinking of giving her more opportunities. If he had known that she would do such a thing, no matter how much harm she suffered, it would be impossible for her to stay here. There must be a bottom line for kindness. A few people were still muttering here. Mrs. Zhou sent someone over to invite Chu Xia. Just don't follow me. Chu Xia looked at the people who stood up and said, after the matter is settled, I will come to find you. Okay. Before Luo Xiaoxian expressed his denial, Zhao Qiwei agreed first. After all, this was a family matter of the Zhou family. No matter how close they were to Chu Xia, they couldn't just join in the fun of everything. And she believed that the Zhou family would put Chu Xia's opinions first, and there was no need for them to mess around. Xia. As soon as Chu Xia entered the door, Mrs. Zhou came over and took her hand, with an apologetic look on her face. It's all because of Grandma's fault, which made you feel wronged. You child is also really, Why didn't you tell Grandma earlier if something like that happened? Grandma, haven't I always found an opportunity? Chusia smiled and sat down with the old lady. I'm fine. Grandma, don't blame yourself. It's not a big deal. I didn't suffer any loss. It's all my fault, Grandma, for being kind. Old Mrs. Joe sighed. Originally, your grandfather's opinion was to transfer her to another place, but I stopped her. Alas, your grandfather was right, I am the kindness of women. Grandma, don't blame yourself. By the way, how did you deal with Xiaojing? She was asked to work in a factory owned by the Zhou family. No one allowed her to leave. She can't leave the factory. Don't worry, she won't be allowed to hang out in front of you again. I don't want to see her in this life either. Hey. The old lady sighed heavily. You also know that what Grandma hates most is betrayal. She gave her every chance she should have. She has brought it upon herself to end up like this. Even if she goes to the factory and does something inappropriate, I will not regret what I did today, because as far as her character is concerned, if I want to satisfy her, I have to keep her here. If we stay here any longer, our whole family will have to live in fear. That would not be kind-hearted, but stupid, right? I agree with Grandma. This matter ends here. Grandma should stop taking responsibility for herself. Chu Xia smiled and shook the old lady's arm. Ying'er, who discovered this matter, is our family's little hero. She has been thinking about her grandma. How about we wait for Ying'er to finish the competition and take her to see her grandma together? Okay, old Mrs. Joe agreed happily. This is what it should be. Speaking of which, our little Ying'er is also smart. Most children wouldn't think much about it if they find out about this kind of thing. This little girl is sensible. It hurts. It's a pity that her mother is very old and not as sensible as a child. Well, fortunately, your third uncle has finally chosen the right person. Otherwise, Grandma will not be able to close her eyes until she is buried. R1152. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 993. 3 updates. Hearing Mrs. Joe talk about Zhou Yiping, Chu Xia also fell silent. After all, she was the daughter-in-law of the Zhou family, so she really couldn't express any opinion on this matter. Seeing Chu Xia's embarrassment, Mrs. Joe smiled and patted her. When will you be able to talk to us like you talk to your parents? That means you really regard yourself as a member of the Zhou family. Grandma, you are wronging me by saying that. Chu Xia said dissatisfiedly. I have long regarded myself as a member of the Zhou family, but I really don't know Ying'er's mother very well. You asked me how to answer the call. So, Grandma has wronged you. Old Mrs. Joe looked at her funny. You kid, you and Grandma are obviously hiding their secrets, but Grandma just likes you. What should you do? That means I didn't hide my secrets from Grandma at all. Chu Xia looked at the old lady seriously. As you know, I always have reservations about people or things I don't understand. I can't just rely on my elders' love for me and keep my mouth shut. Any opinions will always have an impact on others. I don't want my mistakes to influence other people's thinking. Grandma, what you said shows that you haven't really regarded me as a member of the Zhou family. If the second sister and the fourth sister had reservations in this regard, you would definitely not say so, right? You kid. Old Mrs. Joe nodded her head helplessly. You don't suffer any loss with your mouth. Well, Grandma is wrong. I apologize to you, okay? Then there's no need. Chu Xia laughed and shook her head. I can't afford to ask Grandma to apologize to me. Zhou Mikang will definitely scold me again if he finds out later. He dares to scold you, Old Mrs. Joe curled her lips. Don't give him credit. He is very arrogant in front of others, but when he comes to you, he will definitely be able to control the dragon and the tiger. I don't dare to have any temper at all. Grandma, what you said is too exaggerated. Chusia felt embarrassed when the old lady said it, and what you said makes me feel that I am particularly unreasonable. What's unreasonable about a person willing to fight and the other willing to suffer? The old lady took her granddaughter-in-law's hand affectionately. Sia, Grandma is only happy to see that you two have a good relationship. I know. Chusia nodded. If I was still worried before getting married, now, I really feel that I am very lucky to have met such a reasonable husband. Grandma, despite my usual carelessness, in fact, I know how tolerant you, Grandpa, and parents are to me, and I am very satisfied with it. Sometimes, I really hope to be as obedient as my sister-in-law, so that Grandma, Grandpa, parents don't have to worry about me, but I can't convince myself. After all, given my age, I still hope that I can learn more. I know that even if I am nothing, my family will not dislike me. However, I hope that I can live up to my expectations. This is not to prove anything to anyone, but to hope that I can truly be a useful person, rather than a daughter flower that surrounds Joe Mikang. Grandma, don't worry, I will pay special attention to my own safety. Don't worry about me all the time. When it's really inconvenient, I won't go to school if you ask me to. My parents have been worried that this matter will make you, Grandpa, parents feel uncomfortable, so I decided to tell you in person and asked Grandma to emphasize this matter to my parents again. I guess seeing my aunt's nervousness towards Ziokshan later, they will change their mind again and let me stay in City A. Grandma, it's not that I don't want to stay, I just hope that I can be a trustworthy person. For me, Mr. Chi and Aunt Chi moved specially, and Mr. Yuan. If I stay there, I can continue studying even if I don't go to school. This is also a spiritual sustenance for me. Grandma, you can understand that, right? You have already talked about this. Can Grandma not understand? Old Mrs. Joe sighed helplessly. Originally Grandma also wanted to persuade you to stay, but now that you are saying this, how can you still have the nerve to open your mouth? But speaking of it, your child is also rare. Generally speaking, as long as girls get married and live a comfortable life, they are not willing to study hard. Grandma is very happy that you can have this determination. Don't worry, your parents' grandma will tell them that if your mother-in-law misses you, you can ask her to go to the capital to see you. Anyway, I'm here. Tower is about to give birth, and your third aunt is about to give birth, so Grandma will stop running back and forth. Sia, you can't misunderstand that Grandma doesn't value you. Grandma does this because she hopes to be a qualified mother-in-law. Grandma, I understand. Speaking of which, Mom is quite happy to be your wife. Chu Xia said with a smile, but I am also blessed. Mom is so open-minded, and Grandma is also so open-minded. I'm thinking now, it's a good thing I agreed to marry Joe Mikang, otherwise I would have missed out on the best old woman and mother-in-law in the world. It's good to know. Old Mrs. Joe gathered her grandson-in-law's bangs and fought for her grandson's rights. Now that I know, I will be twice as kind to Xiaomi in the future. This is Grandma's only request. It's necessary to be nice to him, but Grandma, you sound like I'm always bullying him. Look at me, a little guy, can I bully him? Don't forget that he usually asks for my opinion on everything. In fact, he is the one who makes the decision. Every time, if he and I have different opinions, I will ultimately listen to him. Of course, on the surface, it seems that he listens to me. This is the level. How about someone who can be a teacher at a young age and others can't do it? Grandma, do you agree with what I say? The grandson's wife's words sounded like she was criticizing her grandson, but she was actually praising her precious grandson. How could the old lady be unhappy? A smile that stretches from ear to ear. Zhou Mikang came back in the evening and learned about Xiaojing. With a gloomy face, he rushed to the bathroom like a whirlwind and threw away his toothbrush and toothbrush. Early summer. Why are you looking like this? It's so disgusting. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Zhou Mikang said as he picked up a glass of water and rinsed his mouth vigorously. Chu Xia stepped forward and poked him. Do you think I can still let you use that toothbrush after I find out about this? Idiot, this set is basically a new set of mine, eh? It's such a waste for you to throw it away. Did you change them for me? Zhou Mikang turned to look at her. Did you deliberately change the toothbrush and toothbrush to the same ones as before? Yes, Chu Xia nodded, and I specially rubbed your toothbrush with my hand, just to see if your observation skills are really as careful as you said, but the result? She shrugging his shoulders, too bad. This time it was Zhou Mikang's turn and he didn't know what to say. Marrying a wife who was much younger than himself was not good at all. His brain circuits were too different and he was tricked accidentally. However, he still quite likes this feeling, and he doesn't feel like life is like a pool of stagnant water. Anyway, the garbage basket was empty, so the teacher Zongzi stepped forward, emptied his toothbrush from the toothbrush, took it out, and washed it under the faucet. That's enough, there's no waste at all. You're so disgusting. Chu Xia curled her lips. I just picked up the toothbrush again, but I also picked up the toothbrush again. She shook her head and made a vomiting motion, which frightened Zhou Mikang and hurriedly gave away the toothbrush. Through. Dong dong. I'll open the door. Zhou Mikang patted his little wife and quickly went over to open the door. It was his father-in-law and mother-in-law. No need to ask, he knew why the couple came here. Dad, Mother. After letting the two of them into the room, Zhou Mikang took the initiative to apologize. It was our lack of observation that made Chu Xia suffer. Don't worry, you two, this kind of thing will never happen again in the future. To my little one, if the two elders are not satisfied with Jing's handling, I will discuss it with Grandma again and find a suitable solution. Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe, who were originally complaining, felt a little embarrassed when their son-in-law said this. Zhao Yulan quickly said, we just came to see Chu Xia, nothing else. Mom, Dad, don't worry. Nothing happened to me. Besides, Xiaojing didn't really want to harm me. She was just confused at the time. Chu Xia explained, laughing and sitting between her parents. Holding their arms affectionately, Grandma and parents said that, right. Yes, Aunt Zhou called us to the room to say. After saying that, Zhao Yulan became embarrassed. We were too rude. After hearing what she said about what Xiaojing did, she hurried up. In fact, when something like this happened, Aunt Zhou and Uncle Zhou felt the most uncomfortable. We still had that attitude. No, I had to go down and explain to her. What we did was too unreasonable. The couple were both honest people. After they figured it out, they went to apologize to Mrs. Zhou no matter what. However, Zhou Mixang and Chu Xia had no choice but to accompany them down. Mrs. Zhou is indeed upset because she insisted on keeping Xiaojing, so this happened. It is reasonable for her in-laws to be unhappy now. Looking up, she saw Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe returning, and Chu Xia Zhou Mixang following behind. The old lady quickly stood up. Zhao Yulan stepped forward, took her hand, and said apologetically, Aunt Zhou, I'm sorry, Baohe and I were too impulsive, please forgive me. Looking at what you said, it's clear that Auntie made a mistake. No, 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 Aunt Zhou is not to blame for this. If you could guess other people's thoughts clearly, wouldn't you be a god? So, how can I blame you for this? As long as you don't blame me, as long as you don't blame me. After talking about it, everyone's relationship became closer. No wonder people say that if conflicts are resolved, they are lubricants, but if they are not resolved, they are time bombs. R1152. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 994. 1 Update. Early the next morning, Director Su called Zhou's house to tell her that she had returned and asked Luo Xiaoxian to go over quickly to discuss the job transfer. After returning from looking at the house yesterday afternoon, Luo Xiaoxian, accompanied by a group of elders, went to the hospital for a checkup, which 100% confirmed her identity as a pregnant woman. Therefore, she has only one choice left now, which is to find an idle position first. Let's wait until the baby is born. If it weren't for Director Su's face, the Zhou family could have settled the matter. Out of respect, the Zhou family decided not to intervene and let Luo Xiaoxian discuss it with Director Su. Chu Xia, do you think Dean Su will be particularly disappointed if I do this? On the way there, Luo Xiaoxian looked uneasy. She was still terribly guilty for this sudden situation. Director Su valued her so much, but now she made such a choice. She was afraid that it would really hurt Director Su's heart, and she would not want to talk to her in the future. After getting along for these few months, her relationship with Director Su was no longer just a simple one. It was the relationship between the leader and her subordinates, the other party's appreciation of her, and his step-by-step guidance that made her regard the other party as an important person like her parents. This is also the reason why she still stays here even though she is not particularly happy here. No matter how unhappy she is, as long as she has the support of one person, she can persevere. Stop thinking nonsense. Chu Xia patted her little hand comfortingly. Think about your previous misunderstanding of Fat Ant, now you are not so nervous. After being with Director Su for so long, you have understood her well. Do you think she will be disappointed by this kind of thing? She valued me so much and wanted to train me well, but I failed so badly. With a heavy sigh, Luo Xiaoxian stared out the window and said nothing. Understanding her current mood, Chu Xia didn't care about her. Anyway, she was about to meet Director Su to reveal the answer, so there was no need for her to talk endlessly on the way. As expected in Chu Xia, Director Su looked happy when he saw Luo Xiaoxian. After saying hello, he took out a red envelope from the drawer and handed it over. Xiaoxian, I'm very disappointed that I couldn't attend your wedding, are you not angry with me? Director, how could I be angry with you? Unexpectedly, Luo Xiaoxian's eyes quickly filled with tears. I'm so grateful that you're not angry with me. You silly child. Director Su stuffed the red envelope into her hand. I can only be happy for you, and I have already seen that you are very tired from staying here. I didn't think about it at the beginning. Weak. After all, you are a child who has never experienced a personal struggle. To suddenly bring you to such a place is simply to force someone into a difficult situation. Anyway, now this can be regarded as an opportunity. We can be regarded as masters and apprentices. I hope you will go well in the future. Based on your personality, I think you are still not suitable for being a nurse. If you believe me, transfer to the administrative department of 401. Starting from the basics and practicing a little bit, I believe you will definitely be a qualified manager in the future. If you agree, I will fill in your intention on the transfer letter. I do. Luo Xiaoxian nodded quickly. Director, I hope that one day, when I really have that ability, I can be your assistant again. Okay, I'm looking forward to that day too. Director Su reached out and patted her shoulder. Now you can take care of your baby with peace of mind. You are in a special period now, and I am taking advantage of the opportunity of transfer to grant you half a month's leave. Your teacher, I have never shown favoritism in my life, and I have broken the precept this time. Director. Luo Xiaoxian looked at Director Su gratefully, not knowing what to say. Look at you, you haven't been with me for a day, and it's so shocking to be like this anymore. Director Su looked at her seriously. Am I just an unreasonable old man in your heart? Of course not, Luo Xiaoxian quickly denied. I just feel that I have caused you trouble, and you still think about me everywhere, which makes me feel uncomfortable. But don't worry, I will not relax my requirements on myself. One day, I will make myself qualified to stand by your side and help you. Okay, it's settled. Director Sue stepped forward and hugged her. I want to leave right away, so I won't say more to you. We can talk again after I finish the work at hand. After waiting for a long time, Director Sue came back just for her this time. The tears that had been held back for a long time rolled down uncontrollably. Teacher. Thousands of words were choked in her throat, and she could not say a word. Okay, okay. Director Sue stretched out his hand to wipe her cheeks and looked at Chusia. I'll leave her to you. Please give her some advice. This child looks carefree, but she's actually very thoughtful. Hey, the car is still waiting for me outside. Let's go first. After packing your things, remember to lock the office door. We will. Chusia responded. Go and get busy. In early summer, my heart is blocked. After Director Sue left, Luo Xiaoxian shed tears while packing the things in her drawer. She and I are not relatives, but she is so good to me. Sometimes I wonder, what is my specialty that makes her recognize me so much? She said that what she likes is my kindness. However, there are so many kind people, why do they only like me? This is the right relationship. Chusia comforted. Don't be sentimental. If you really appreciate her kindness to you, work harder and you will have the opportunity to come back to her in the future. Yes. Luo Xiaoxian nodded, collected her thoughts, and packed her things seriously. Luo Xiaoxian. A young girl stuck her head in, looked at Chusia curiously, and then looked at Luo Xiaoxian. I heard you are going to be transferred away. Why? I'm married. Luo Xiaoxian glanced at her lightly. I may be faced with becoming a mother soon, so I have to temporarily transfer to a suitable position. Oh. The girl responded twice and ran away happily. Her name is Liang Maimei. She has always wanted to take my place. Now she sees hope, and she is very happy. Luo Xiaoxian looked at Chusia and explained. I can see that a lot of people are watching you in your position. There will definitely be others coming to inquire about the news soon. We are not angry. At this moment, being angry with these people means that you are at odds with yourself, right? Well. Luo Xiaoxian nodded. I understand. Speaking of which, I should feel proud. This means they are jealous of me, right? Right. Actually, starting at the grassroots level is what really suits me. Although I feel I have adapted here, I am still a little overwhelmed. In addition, my colleagues here are not easy to get along with, so I sometimes feel lonely. Back to 401, at least there are Daodu, Lu Meijun, and Wang Jing. By the way. Luo Xiaoxian slapped her forehead fiercely. We are all so busy that our minds are confused. Didn't we tell you that Wang Jing has a boyfriend? Thing. No. Chusia immediately sat up straight after hearing this. When did it happen? Where did the boy come from? Do you know that she is responsible for supporting her father? Someone introduced Wang Jing's boyfriend before because she had to support her. The father flinched, so Chusia would have the last question. The man's name is Song Gang. He is an intern doctor who just went to our hospital. He was assigned to Director Song. Then he fell in love with Wang Jing. He was willing to be good with her because he knew that Wang Jing supported her father alone. By the way, Song happens to be a relative of Director Song. Of course, this is a rumor, and I don't know if it is true. After all, I don't work in 401 anymore. It doesn't matter whether he is a relative of Director Song. The key is that he has a good character. Chusia breathed a sigh of relief. Senior sister finally met his Mr. Right. Yes, it seems that this year is a good year. Happy news. One thing after another. As Chusia expected, while the two were packing their things, several groups of people came over to ask Josei about her departure. It sounded like greetings, but in fact they were all here to inquire about the news. There are also some direct words that are sarcastic, implying that Josei was fired because she was unqualified. Feeling that the people were almost here, Josei lowered her voice and said to Chusia, "I won't get angry with them, but I have written them all down. I will tell Director Su later that no matter how good these people are, they cannot be chosen as assistants. 2. The chicken is full of intestines." "You're right," Chusia nodded with approval, "I support your approach." Josei looked at Chusia with a troubled face. "Don't you think I'm being a chicken when I do this?" "Get out of here," Chusia glared at her. "We can't put unqualified people around Director Su just because we're worried about others saying that we're a bitch. That's really selfish. Why else would I be so willing to be with you?" Josei laughed. "No matter what happens, you can always speak to my heart and make me feel very righteous." "Chusia, it's good in the first place, why do you say it as if she is good at reasoning? Now that work is settled, renting a house can naturally be put on the agenda. Undisputedly, a house close to 401 has become the first choice." They sent someone over to discuss it, and the rental agreement was signed on the same day. The house was kept clean and fully furnished. In the afternoon, Li Aiwan and Zhao Yishan moved in. The matter on the daughter's side was settled. After Luo Gangshun and Fat Ant discussed it, they quietly bought train tickets. By the time Luo Zioxian reacted, the two of them had already boarded the train. "What do they mean?" Luo Zioxian looked at Chusia with tears in her eyes. "Just leave, is there any need to be so sneaky? I am not a 3-year-old child, and I still forcefully stop them from leaving. This makes people feel very uncomfortable. They even say it is for my own good, but it is purely to cause trouble for me. It's not that they're afraid that you won't let it go, it's that they themselves won't let it go." Chusia sighed. "Hey, think about the way Fatty Ant looks at you these past 2 days, and you'll know whether I'm right or not." R1152. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 995. One update arrived. Chen Yuegang came to me himself and told me. Zhou Mikang sighed. To be honest, Chen Yuegang is also pitiful. He doesn't know anything about his brother. At that time, he really wanted to be with Zhou Yiping, and he was especially grateful to his brother for helping him create opportunities. The person closest to him suddenly turned into a despicable person who took advantage of him and got himself implicated. How would he feel in his heart? His parents couldn't bear this sudden blow, and they both fell ill in bed. The burden of supporting the family fell on him, but because he was implicated by his brother, he lost his iron job and could only find a job that was hard, tiring and had little money. Of temporary work. At that time, he had become a frightened bird, so after Zhou Yiping went to find him, he quickly found me and explained the situation to me, and promised that he would never associate with Zhou Yiping again. In fact, I never took my anger out on him for his brother's mistakes. However, not taking my anger out on him doesn't mean I accept it, so I didn't give him a good face at that time. This time Zhou Yiping went to see him, and he secretly wrote a letter to his eldest brother, saying that after all these years, Zhou Yiping could still think of him. He didn't want to miss it, and he hoped to get the forgiveness of Zhou's family. After the eldest brother showed me the letter, we went to find my grandfather, father, and third uncle together. They couldn't believe that Zhou Yiping, who had always been delicate, could go to the Cheng family to live a life of hardship. But after investigation, the facts were revealed, and finally everyone decided to acquiesce. But no contact. The eldest brother found Chen Yuegang and told him the Zhou family's decision, and also explained that the Zhou family did not want to interact with them. It was up to him to decide whether he wanted to tell Zhou Yiping all this. After that, he never contacted him again. I didn't tell you, not because I wanted to hide it from you, nor because I didn't believe you. I have an instinctive resistance to this past event, and I am determined not to mention it. Chu Xia sighed and hugged Zhou Mikang's arm. I can understand what you are thinking, and I don't mean to blame you. It's just that I feel that since I have become a member of the Zhou family, there are some things that let me know better than you must be strong if you hide it from me. Otherwise, if one day I meet Zhou Yiping and cause some misunderstandings because I don't know anything, the final result may be something neither of us wants. It's not that I want to meddle in other people's business, but because I married you and became the mother of your child, I have already been branded with the Zhou family. Zhou Mikang sighed heavily. He said, this is a knot in the hearts of the Zhou family. Except for me, my eldest brother, my grandfather, my father, and my third uncle, no one else knows about it. I finally calmed down. I don't want you to think too much about it, but actually Grandma asked Grandpa several times. They were all prevaricated by Grandpa. I understand. Chu Xia also sighed. I really can't say who is right or wrong about this matter. In fact, when you first said it, I thought Zhou Yiping was going too far. No matter what, she couldn't marry into the Cheng family. Reveal the scars that everyone has healed. But, thinking about the cause and effect, she and Chen Yuegong were both victims. Whether it was for other reasons or not, Chen Yuegong was not married until today and was willing to be with her, which can be regarded as a happy ending. I hope. Zhou Mikang smiled bitterly. Her character is very similar to the previous third aunt, but what she did this time was so unexpected. If she sincerely wants to be with Chen Yuegong, it will indeed be a happy ending. If you have other ideas, it's hard to say. Any other ideas? After thinking about it for a while, Chu Xia looked at Zhou Mikang uncertainly. You mean what she is doing now is actually out of anger and revenge? We don't want to think about her like that, but what she did this time is very different from her personality, so let's take it one step at a time. Now that the new year is over, it's time to tell Grandma and Mom. Otherwise, if Zhou Yiping does something inappropriate, it will make her mother and Grandma sad. Her being able to go to Ying'er is a signal. If it is true as Zhou Mikang guessed, Chu Xia is really speechless towards Zhou Yiping. If a person always makes impulsive decisions that harm others in order to take revenge on others, then he really deserves to have a bad life. The third aunt has no contact with Zhou Yiping, right? Chu Xia asked and then added, I'm talking about the former third aunt Lu Lingmei. Probably not. She sighed and said, the third aunt is pregnant now. What Grandpa is most worried about is that Lu Lingmei will do something to the third aunt. Therefore, Grandpa sends people to keep an eye on the people around her and everything she does. Still waiting. That's good. Chu Xia breathed a sigh of relief. There are several pregnant women at home. I'm just worried, so I asked more questions. A gentle smile appeared on Zhou Mikang's lips. You fool, you don't need to explain to me. You have the right to know this. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to be troubled. If you have any questions in the future, just ask me and I will tell you the truth. Humph. Chu Xia rolled her eyes at him. I asked you earlier, did you tell the truth? Zhou Mikang. Okay, I'm teasing you. Chu Xia poked him and turned serious. I know the importance of Xiaoreo in the hearts of the Zhou family, and I even know the importance of her in your hearts. I'm very glad that I found a person who values friendship and friendship. How can you really blame him if you are the husband of a man? This kind of thing will never happen again. Zhou Mikang hugged her. This is the last secret you don't know. When Chu Xia returned to the room, Ying'er was already asleep. Luo Xiaoxian was leaning on the bed with a book. He watched her come in, looked at her up and down for a while, and laughed. Chu Xia was speechless. Can you please stop being so scary? You two are really inseparable. Luo Xiaoxian winked at her. Don't drink. I'm sorry. I understand. Besides, I'm only happy to see that you and the teacher have such a good relationship. I'm too lazy to talk to you. Chu Xia took the bathrobe and went straight to the bathroom. Luo Xiaoqing smiled behind her. Are you embarrassed? It's okay, I won't laugh at you. After thinking about it, he ran to the bathroom door and asked softly, you can't you do that now? What answered her was the sound of water. Why are you standing here? She pushed the door open and saw Luo Xiaoqing still standing at the door of the bathroom. Chu Xia was startled and stared at her dissatisfied. Do you know that scary people can scare you to death? What's more, I have 3 lives now. As he spoke, he reached out and covered his stomach. Luo Xiaoqing, who originally had a bad smile on her face, panicked. I didn't scare you, did I? You don't feel uncomfortable, right? I didn't mean to do it. Chu Xia, I'm sorry, I won't fool around with you anymore. Seeing that she was really scared, Chu Xia stopped teasing her. Put away those dirty thoughts of yours. I really have something to do with Zhou Mikang, and it's not what you think. What did I think? Seeing that Chu Xia was fine, Luo Xiaoqing started to mess around again. I didn't say anything. Chu Xia, isn't it because you really feel guilty and want to explain it on purpose? I'm too lazy to pay attention to you. Chu Xia rolled her eyes at her, leaned against the bed comfortably, and picked up a book. Talk to me for a while. Luo Xiaoqing took the book from her hand and smiled in a flattering manner. Chu Xia, I was wrong, stop talking nonsense. That's pretty much it. Chu Xia looked serious. By the way, there's something I have to remind you. The girl who wants to hitchhike today doesn't seem to be kind at first glance. You should be more careful and don't touch her. Or, if you really encounter any difficulties, just call me and I will ask my mother-in-law to help you. That woman's name is Gao Ziahe. Her father is a section chief of the Agricultural Machinery Bureau. She usually has her eyes on the top of her head. She thinks that all the men in the world like her. Luo Xiaoqing curled her lips. This kind of person's methods are only that high. It's okay, don't worry, I won't be tricked by her. Don't be careless. Remember to tell Dean Su when you go to work tomorrow so that she can have an idea. Chu Xia stared at Luo Xiaoqing seriously. Don't take my words seriously. I know, I won't take it seriously. Luo Xiaoqing smiled and sat next to her. I have something happy to tell you, do you want to hear it? What happy event? Chu Xia glanced at her belly. Don't tell me you're pregnant too. Disgusting, Luo Xiaoqing poked her. If I get pregnant, it won't be a happy event but a horror. De Zhang has a girlfriend. Guess who it is? De Zhang has a girlfriend. Chu Xia's eyes widened in shock. Are you sure you're not mistaken? TCH, would I joke about this kind of thing? He wouldn't admit it if I hadn't hit him. He asked me to keep it a secret, but you are his sister. I can't keep it a secret from you, right? After thinking for a while, Chu Xia really couldn't guess who it was, so she pushed Luo Xiaoqing and said, don't be pretentious and tell me who it is. Zhou Haining. Ah, Chu Xia was even more stunned this time. There was really no way to connect these two people. They both didn't talk much, so why did they become a couple? When did it happen? They said they met before the Chinese New Year and confirmed their relationship in the past few days. Judging from the way Dejiang talked about it, he was quite satisfied with Zhou Haining. He said he didn't want his family to know because he was not sure whether the two of them could be together. Together? Zhou Haining was worried that his parents would think Luan Dejiang was too young, so he thought about telling his family in 2 years, but Luan Dejiang felt that another 2 years would delay Zhou Haining, and now he is conflicted. To be honest, I didn't expect that Meng Hulu found a girlfriend quietly. When I went home a few days ago, your sister-in-law was still worried about this matter. I didn't expect it to be resolved so quickly. After thinking for a while, Chu Xia asked, did you ask him if Zhou Hanliang knew about it? Zhou Hanliang doesn't know yet. Chu Xia frowned, can you tell me in detail? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 996. Second update. Grandpa. Chu Xia reached out to hold Mr. Yes' withered hand, tears falling uncontrollably. We are still waiting for you to drink the grandson's full moon wine. If you don't want Grandpa Jing to beat you to it, you have to get better soon. Do you want your grandson or your daughter? Mr. Yes' cloudy and gloomy eyes lit up. You mean? He looked at Zhou Mikang, who nodded quickly. Yes, Chu Xia wants you to be our child's godfather. Grandpa. The whole family also thinks her idea is a good one, but Grandpa Jing also wants to seize this position. Although children can have many godfathers, the first one they have to recognize is different. You have such a good relationship with my grandfather, so you definitely don't want others to take this position, right? The old man turned his gaze to Chu Xia, with a faint glimmer of water in his eyes. Don't worry, kid, Grandpa will definitely attend your full moon ceremony, and he will definitely not let old Jing to get there first. Yes, Chu Xia nodded and said seriously, you can't tell Grandpa Jing, otherwise he will definitely fall out with me. Okay, don't tell him. Mr. Yes smiled happily. After suffering a serious illness and getting such benefits, I think it's worth it, old man. Hey. He sighed quietly. Girl, you know that I am most grateful to you. What is it? Chu Xia shook her head. She believed that the old man was definitely not being polite to her when he said such things. However, she really couldn't guess what the other party really meant, so she shouldn't make blind guesses. Your grandfather and I have known each other for decades. We have been in the same trench and slept in the same bed. Our love is no worse than that of brothers. When we were young, we were always comparing ourselves to each other. However, the comparison between the two of us is not because of dissatisfaction or jealousy, but because we encourage each other to move forward. Neither one wants to fall behind and become a burden to the other. I know many people have misunderstood us. They think that I have been at odds with Lao Zhou all my life and have fallen behind him. This must be a bad feeling. Including this time when I fell ill, many people thought it was because of the difference between the younger generations of the Ye family. There are too many juniors in the Zhou family, and I can't stand it anymore. Your grandfather had a lot of quarrels with others over this matter. Later I told him, let others say whatever they want. We old brothers just need to understand what is going on in each other's hearts. So, now, you can ask me to be your child's godfather, or the highest ranked godfather. I'm really excited. Having lived to this age and having 4 generations living under the same roof, I am not at a loss in this life, I really am. Chu Xia looked at him seriously. Grandpa, yeah, you can't just make up for the loss. You also have to watch them grow up and help educate them. Okay. Mr. Ye nodded repeatedly. I heard that your grandpa and I have similar problems, and he can be cured. I also promise that he can be cured. Chu Xia, just watch, Grandpa Ye will definitely keep his word. I won't let you down. Well. Chu Xia nodded solemnly, I will visit you every once in a while. If you don't make progress, you will be punished. What's the punishment? Mr. Ye looked at her with some anxiety. Speak out and listen. I don't want to bring the baby to see you. Chu Xia spread her hands. You said that you treat the younger members of the Zhou family as your own. If you think it doesn't matter whether you see them or not, then you are making it clear and nice. Lie to us and we will be very disappointed. Okay. Mr. Ye looked at Zhou Mixang with a smile. Xiaomi, help me up and sit down. I want to drink some porridge. You go down and bring it to me. Zhou Mikang quickly helped him up and went down to get the porridge. Xia. Mr. Ye patted Chu Xia's arm and looked at her seriously. Grandpa is very grateful to you and begs you to take good care of Xiaomi. It's not easy for this kid. I know, you've told me before. After a pause, Chu Xia said with an aggrieved face, you always say that, do you think I'm always bullying him? Of course not. Mr. Ye smiled, in my heart, I feel guilty for Xiaomi. Grandpa, I won't be happy if you say that again. Chu Xia interrupted him, are you telling me clearly that you are not satisfied with him finding me? You kid. Mr. Ye shook his head helplessly, you know I didn't mean it that way. Well, I won't say anything. In short, you know that Grandpa is happy to see you living happily. Well, it still depends on your actions. Okay. Mr. Ye laughed, as soon as I heard that I was going to be a godfather, I was full of energy. Look, I will definitely be able to participate on my own when the moon is full. Zhou Mikang came up with a bowl of porridge and fed it to Mr. Ye himself. The two of them chatted with the old man for a while before standing up to leave. The old man's eyes were full of reluctance, which made Chu Xia feel sour. When you are older, who doesn't want your children and grandchildren to be close to you? When they arrived at the door, Chu Xia turned back and looked at the old man, Grandpa, I have to stay for a few more days before returning to the capital. Before I leave, we will come over to see you again, and then we will not meet again until the baby is 1 month old. Okay, the old man's neutral eyes were suddenly filled with joy, and he nodded in response. Mrs. Ye, who had been quietly standing at the door, couldn't tell what she felt in her heart. Ever since the old man fell ill, he had always been indifferent to her. The daughter-in-law at home always pinched her when they met. The grandchildren had not been close to the old man since they were young and rarely visited her. So when the two of them came here, they treated the old man to give Zikan like this. When Chu Xia saw Mrs. Ye, she was slightly startled. She originally wanted to say hello, but when she saw the complicated look in her eyes, she immediately lost the desire to speak. Zhou Mikang was such a perceptive person. He immediately put his arms around his young wife's shoulders and went downstairs, leaving old Mrs. Ye there to dry herself. He believed that no matter how stupid the old lady was, she would not do anything to the seriously ill Mr. Ye. What, how can a selfish person like her not understand that if there is no old man in this family, her good days will come to an end? Now the two daughters-in-law are pinching each other in front of her, and then Jiang Yuxian sat in the hall with a gloomy face. Ever since the two of them came in, she had been full of resentment. However, her status in the family was different now, so she didn't dare to say anything. At this moment, she saw the two people coming down, staring at Chu Xia's belly, their eyes full of resentment. In her opinion, this position and this situation should belong to her daughter. That way, she wouldn't be in this situation now, letting Miao Yanli ride on her neck and shit. Xiaomi, Chu Xia. Miao Yanli stepped forward and pulled Chu Xia's arm affectionately, smiling like a sunflower. It's really thoughtful of you two to come visit the old man. These days, the old man has been in a depressed mood. No matter how much we try to persuade him, it is of no use. It has been a long time since I heard the old man smile so happily. Thank you so much. How could Chu Xia not understand her purpose of doing this, which was inconsistent with Jiang Yuxian's, so what Jiang Yuxian didn't like was naturally what she liked. Showing affection to her in a timely manner was basically a demonstration to Jiang Yuxian. However, she understands that she will not throw a cold face at Miao Yanli because of this. In any case, the other party's words are really happy for Mr. Ye. Moreover, she is not the Holy Mother. Miao Yanli is doing this in disguise. I was helping her, so I called my second aunt sweetly with a smile and was polite. Over there, Jiang Yuxian felt that her lungs were going to explode. She wanted to explode, but she was also worried that the old man would really not allow her to enter this house. Now she is staying here, not to say how filial she is, but to hope that Ye will know at any time. In the old man's situation, if something unexpected happens, Miao Yan Li won't be able to take the lead. However, seeing the two people she hated the most chatting happily made her feel like she was being fried. Suddenly, Jiang Yuxian stood up. Zhou Mikang, who had been protecting his young wife, felt Jiang Yuxian's movement and looked over coldly. Xiaomi, I just want to ask you, is there any news about Myru? Now that the old man is so ill, should she come back and fulfill her filial piety in front of the bed? You saw it when you went in just now. The old man likes to stay at home with the younger generation so much. In this family, besides Myru, who else is willing to make the old man happy? She was simply telling lies with her eyes open. If Myru knew how to make Mr. Ye happy, then there really would be no unfilial younger generation. What she said was nothing more than deliberately mentioning her daughter to cause trouble for Chu Xia. Unfortunately, for Chu Xia, this is not a problem at all. Okay. If Zhou Mixang liked Myru but married her, and now hearing what Jiang Yuxian said, she might feel unhappy. For a woman who has never been liked by her husband and even betrayed her husband, what's there to be angry about? With this thought in mind, Chu Xia looked at Jiang Yuxian as if looking at a clown, then she took Zhou Mikang's hand and walked out of Ye's house without saying a word. Everything actually happened in an instant. Until the two people disappeared, Mrs. Ye was still standing upstairs, staring at the door with a complicated expression. At this age, she certainly knew what was most important to her. It was at that moment, when she heard her old man laughing heartily, that she realized that perhaps, what she had been doing was really it's wrong. Looking at the two daughters-in-law downstairs, one was elated and the other was furious. This was the daughter-in-law she had chosen back then. What did she do? Come in. Hearing the call of this familiar voice, Mrs. Ye was shocked, and then tears overflowed from her eyes. R1152. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 997. Second update arrived. Lin Wenbin, who was not a good drinker, was dragged to Jingzhe's dormitory by Zhou Mikang and forced onto the bed. After covering him with a quilt, he was still muttering, "If you dare to treat my sister badly, I will beat you to death." Zhou Mikang shook his head funny and went to pour him a glass of boiling water. The two jars were poured back and forth. When the water temperature dropped, he poured it into Lin Wenbin. After knowing the other person's drinking capacity, I can no longer let him drink so much according to his temper. But speaking of it, this guy is quite perseverant. He can hold on for more than 2 hours until the early summer comes out. He just got drunk, which indirectly explained the position of Chu Xia in his psychology. Maybe the fate between people is so magical. He has 3 sisters, but he is the closest to Xiaoreo. Thinking of his little sister, his heart sank, and he quickly forced himself to stop his thoughts. On the other bed, Guji, who was asleep, sat up in a daze, looked at the people standing in the room, suddenly stood up straight, stood at attention and saluted, "Hello, Captain." Zhou Mikang returned the military salute and said helplessly, "Who are you trying to scare in the middle of the night? Hurry up and lie down to sleep." "Yes," Zhuliang responded and hurriedly lay down on the bed, but he was tossing and turning and couldn't fall asleep at all. Seeing how uncomfortable he looked, Zhou Mikang had no choice but to say, "Get up if you can't sleep." Yes, Guguo breathed a sigh of relief and sat up. Suddenly, his face turned red. "Regiment, Captain, I'm sorry, was my junior sister hurt by me?" Zhou Mikang didn't know what he had done before, so he looked at him doubtfully. "How could you hurt Chu Xia? What's going on?" As a result, he felt regretful and wanted to bite off his tongue. Why was he so tongue-tied? If the group leader knew about his previous behavior, would he skin him? Chu Xia was sitting at the table and taking a nap. I felt a tightness in my arms, and then Her body flew into the air unconsciously, which frightened her so much that she suddenly woke up and found that she was being held in Jo Mikang's arms and walking out. "What are you doing?" Chu Xia pinched him anxiously and secretly glanced in the direction of Song Xiao. Fortunately, the other party was lying on the table and squinting, not noticing their little movements at all. Jo Mikang didn't say a word, and walked straight out of the office door with Chu Xia in his arms, and met two nurses. I was so shocked that I could hardly close my mouth. Yes, her reputation in the hospital was completely ruined by this man. Everyone knew that she was married. However, as for who she married, not many people knew. The key is that the medical staff unanimously assumed that she was married to a farmer from the countryside, and deliberately did not mention it because they were afraid of hurting her heart. This is great. She was hugged and hugged by a soldier in front of the public. She really didn't know how it was going to be spread. Hey, it seems that it is impossible to hide her identity any longer, I thought so. She simply looked at Jo Mikang openly and said, "Put me down." Jo Mikang continued to move forward, not listening to her at all. Chu Xia frowned, "I will talk to you seriously about anything you have to say, now. Let me say hello to my colleagues. If you don't want me to divorce you, just listen to me." After a pause, Jo Mikang put her on the ground. Coincidentally, the two nurses moved at a snail's pace to get in contact with the two of them. Chu Xia smiled at them and said, "Nurse Ma and Nurse Ji are on duty today." Yeah. Unexpectedly, Chu Xia would say hello. The two of them were stunned for a moment and quickly nodded in response. Chu Xia pointed to the sullen man next to her and introduced, "This is my husband Jo Mikang." Then he introduced the two nurses to Jo Mikang, "These are my colleagues, Nurse Ma Yan, and Nurse Chi Ji." Although Ma Yan and Chi Ji did not know Jo Mikang, he was wearing a military uniform, and it was also a military uniform with unusual texture, which naturally represented his identity. The two looked at each other suspiciously, a little at a loss. Fortunately, Jo Mikang had already nodded to the two of them and walked forward on his own. Chu Xia waved to the two of them and quickly chased after them. Wang Jing and Ma Yan Kija came out of the toilet and bumped into each other. They quickly grabbed Wang Jing's arms and dragged her back to the toilet. "What are you doing?" Wang Jing looked at the two of them. "It's midnight, what are you doing? Let me ask you, do you know who the man your junior sister married is?" Yeah, you know what?" The two looked at her and asked. "I know." Wang Jing looked at the two of them suspiciously. "What's wrong? What does it have to do with you who you marry in early summer?" "It has nothing to do with us, but just now." Ma Yan vividly explained the scene she just saw in detail. Chu Xia followed Jo Mikang to a secluded corner and looked at him with a frown. "What's wrong? How did I offend you? What do you think?" Jo Mikang glared at her. "I will give you a chance now. Think about it quickly. What are you hiding from me? If you tell me now, I can forgive you once. Otherwise, don't blame me for talking. It doesn't count. What are you hiding?" Chu Xia scratched her head, then scratched her head again, and then smiled in a flattering manner. "Are you awake?" Lin Chuxia. Okay, I was wrong." Chu Xia quickly raised her hand and promised, "I will never make similar mistakes again in the future. I am a doctor, not a pioneer. I should save people, but I will definitely hide myself first." "Absolutely, it's not worth it if you can't save the person and end up killing yourself, right?" "Really? What is it?" Jo Mikang snorted coldly. "Who are you asking?" "Ask me, I'm asking and answering myself." Chu Xia tugged at his sleeves. "I know I was wrong. The teacher and Jing Zhe both trained me yesterday, and they also said that if I do this again, if it's wrong, I won't be allowed to be a doctor. Don't just make promises with your mouth." Jo Mikang stared at her. "You must take it seriously from the heart." "Lin Chuxia, don't think I didn't say the ugly things first. If I find out about it again, You won't want to be a doctor. Now, don't even think about going to medical university. Isn't that too overbearing? What, you're still pretending to be a good person and a bad person? Chu Xia quickly shook her head, no. Since not, what are you afraid of? Zhou Mixang looked at her calmly. As long as you don't make mistakes, I won't deprive you of your right to become a doctor. What do you have to be afraid of? There is always a contingency for everything. Chu Xia said with a bitter face, let's be reasonable. Look, I didn't stipulate that you are not allowed to go forward but only backward when on the battlefield, right? Zhou Mikang was so angry at her absurd reasoning that he laughed. Is this the same thing? Doctors save people. In order to save more people, you must hide yourself first. Soldiers are meant to kill the enemy. If I, a general, retreat when I see danger, how can I lead my troops? You don't want me to become a laughing stock, do you? It's just a metaphor. Chu Xia sighed. Okay, okay. I'll do as you say, but don't tell your parents about this, including my parents. Do you think I'm stupid? Zhou Mikang glared at her. You're as skinny as a monkey, and you're still being used as a cushion for others. You're really brave. Hee hee. Chu Xia smiled sheepishly. I was so anxious at the time, it was completely a conditioned reflex. But don't you think this shows that I am a kind person? Okay, let's go on duty. I'll go to Jingzhe's place to have a look, Zhou Mixang said as he turned around and walked towards Jingzhe's office. He didn't see Jingzhe coming over all night, so he was a little curious. After returning in early summer, I first went to the intensive care unit. Qin Mei had already fallen asleep and had been struggling all night. She was so tired and suddenly it still hurt. But it no longer affected her sleep. After checking the data of each instrument, Chu Xia smiled at Qin's mother who looked at her worriedly. It's pretty good, don't worry. Thank you, Dr. Xiaolin. Mother Qin quickly thanked her. I know she must be fine, but that's how mothers are, they can't help but worry. Chu Xia smiled at her and said, you and Sister Huang should take turns to sleep for a while. Staying in bed is a long-term battle. If you tire yourself out, how can you take care of Sister Qin? Qin's mother nodded. I'm relieved now. I can take turns sleeping with Xiao Huang. Dr. Xiaolin, you must help us talk to Director Zhou. Xiao Huang is so responsible. With her here, we are really happy. Blessings for the two of you. This is my job, Auntie, please don't be polite to me, Huang Li said and handed the 2 sacks under the bed to Qin's mother. Auntie, just keep your eyes peeled for a while. You go to sleep first. Mother Qin pushed her hand away. You have been busy all night. You must be very tired. You go to bed first. I will ask you to get up for me later. Auntie, I'm young, so I'll be fine if I stay up a little longer. I used to work night shifts, so staying up late is a piece of cake for me. Seeing that Qin's mother wanted to push her back, Chu Xia smiled and said, you two are pushing back and forth like this. I don't think anyone needs to rest tonight. Aunt Qin, you go to bed first. No matter what, Sister Huang also a lot younger than you. Okay, I'll listen to Dr. Xiaolin. Mother Qin obediently took the sack and spread it on the open space to the right of the door. There is a small open space prepared for family members accompanying the bed. If the conditions are good, they will use a blanket to spread it. If the conditions are poor, just lay out sacks. Qin Mei slept until 5 o'clock in the morning when she woke up and found that Chu Xia was helping her adjust the drip speed, so she said gratefully, thank you. Her voice was completely hoarse and she made a hissing sound, not to mention others. She herself felt terribly uncomfortable listening to it. How does it feel? Chu Xia asked softly. Qin Mei shook her head and smiled again, indicating that she was fine. Your throat had to endure it too hard yesterday, so I protested to you, Chu Xia said, giving her a thumbs up. That's really good. Qin Mei laughed sheepishly. After thinking about it, she asked again, when you get better in the future, you won't always have a bit of a mute feeling, right? Where's my mother? When she found that only Chusia was with her in bed, Chin-mei wanted to turn her head to look, but Chusia quickly stopped her. Don't move. If the wound is pulled, you will suffer more. Your aunt should go to the work to ask for leave. Now, Sister Huang is going to fetch hot water for you and scrub it, so I'll just keep an eye here for a while. Thank you. Apart from these two words, Chin-mei didn't know what to say. Thinking about the first time they met and looking at herself now, she felt that she was really lucky. If she thought about it in other people's shoes that day, by the way, she would definitely not help the other person without any grudges. Chusia smiled at her. If you really want to thank me, just let yourself get better as soon as possible. Okay, Chin-mei responded happily, as if she would really get better quickly if she agreed. Sister, it's time to eat. The son of the old man in the next bed came in with a food box and poked the sleeping woman sitting by the bed. Sister, get up and eat. After you finish eating, go home and go to bed. The woman sat upright in a daze, and it took her a long time to come back to her senses. She looked at the intravenous drip bottle in panic, and found a full bottle of medicine dripping. Then she breathed a sigh of relief. I was scared to death. Just relying on you, I might have died several times. The old man curled his lips at her. Dr. Xiaolin has been keeping an eye on me. It was Dr. Xiaolin who rang the bell and asked the nurse to change the medicine every time. You slept there just like a dead pig. Go home and sleep. Dad, I heard that you are so angry that you seem to be recovering well, the man said as he turned to Chusia to thank him. Dr. Xiaolin, thank you very much. Chusia smiled and waved her hand. I'm a little tired of being alone in bed. I don't need to be so polite when it comes to my convenience. To be continued.